No, you don't need the.
I'm doing this my way.
He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend.
Talking on it though, then
He
you
a
can't put it up
legend.
later.
Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Michael at League of Items, and today we have two slates to go over, two-game slates. As you know, I'm not the biggest fan of two-game slates, but the people want what the people want. We don't have any betting lines for LCK, the promotion tournament. This is going to be a best-of-3 matchup, so let's just go lane by lane, and I'll let you know what I think of the different players. So Summit versus Rich, I think this is a huge advantage for Sandbox Gaming. Summit should be the starter. We will know, hopefully, before this starts tomorrow at 4 a.m. Eastern. So definitely you have to look for the starting roster right before lock. If, for some reason, Summit is not starting, I would pick Dynamics as a team. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. On Fleek versus Beyond, I think On Fleek is the better player. Again, if he's not playing, it is a significant downgrade. I do think that he's the better player. Sandbox was expected to be much better than this year. So it is somewhat concerning, but I think that they still have this opportunity to make sure that they don't get relegated. There's a ton of motivation, obviously, for both sides, so there's not really an edge either way. But the fact that Sandbox Gaming has been playing against better competition in their professional matches for the past few months is definitely a bonus. So top lane, prefer Summit. On Fleek versus Beyond. Beyond has been around for a long time, but he's not like an extreme carry jungler or anything like that, at least from what I know about him. So that's just another thing to take into consideration. In the mid lane, Fate and Dove versus Kuzan. Kuzan is another name that people who follow League of Legends for a long time, they're going to recognize. He's played on several teams, and he's never really been able to be the best mid laner in Korea. So that is something that's kind of a knock against him, because he's a known commodity in the sense that we've seen him not be great, which limits the potential upside that people see in him, or his ceiling. If Dynamics wins, obviously he's going to perform well because mid laners score so many points for their teams, but his being on the roster decreases their chance of winning the series, I would think. So Fate and Dove, really not sure who's going to play. Again, you're going to have to check. I think in their last matchup, I think it was Fate. Let's check that. 4:15. Okay, I guess it was not Fate. I guess it was Fate. So Fate played on the 15th. That was their last matchup. And then in the bot lane, we have Leo. He also played in their last match. Leo versus FaZe. I don't know anything about FaZe, but from what I've seen in my research, Dynamics plays through the bot lane. So he's a 20-year-old AD carry. Age isn't extremely important in League of Legends because most of the players are within a few years of one another. So I think that both ways we've seen Leo perform well. We've seen FaZe being played through just from his match history. So I don't think there's a huge edge in the bot lane. And then Gorilla versus Googer. Gorilla at one point was one of the best supports in the world. Googer was always a well-respected support, I believe, but he's another guy who never really separated himself from everyone else. But he's another legacy player. Like, he's been around for a long time, and that does that's going to make some people remember that he's been a professional for a long time, which some people put a high value on. I don't personally. I think if you're somebody who's been around for a long time and hasn't been able to differentiate yourself from everybody else and make a name for yourself, then that's kind of only a negative. Overall, I think Sandbox is definitely the team that I prefer. I haven't seen a betting line for this, but I would have to assume that when the line comes out, they'll probably be around minus 200. I don't know if there's a huge edge there either way. If I saw a line that was like minus 150, I would probably consider it, but I'm just not sure what the line is going to look like, or if there's even going to be one. I haven't been able to find one. Next game, Griffin versus Soraball Gaming. That's what we're going with. So this is an interesting matchup because Griffin has looked pretty good in some of their victories. They've been tested against some of the really good teams in the LCK, and every once in a while they would pick up a game. Viper and Tarzan are really the core of their team, and I expect them to focus on them for this matchup. So we have Untara against Tall. We don't know the matchup. We don't know the starting lineup, but we have every reason to believe it's going to be Untara and Tall. I don't think there's a huge edge either way. These are both not the kind of top laner that I would want my team to have. So when I was doing my research on this match, my initial instinct was that Untara and Tall were going to be pretty even, and it wasn't going to be a very important matchup either way. But after looking at it a little more in depth, I think that Tall is the better side of this matchup. He is more of a carry player, and he was rank 1 in Europe at one time. So he's a Korean, but he went to North America at one point, and he went to Europe at one point. So that is very interesting to see because he hasn't really been able to establish himself in Korea. But the fact that he believes in himself enough to go to those two different parts of the world to try to chase down his professional dream, that's really cool to see. He plays a lot of carry champions, so Sylas, Camille, Aatrox, and Sylas. So it's one thing to play those champions. It's another thing to have your team believe in you and pick those champions for you in a high pressure environment. And it would appear that they believe in him. So I think in terms of the pressure in top lane, I think that SRB is going to be applying a lot of pressure to Griffin in the top lane because Untara, I think we've seen him mostly on tank champions. Another thing to watch out for is that Sword could potentially play in this matchup, and Sword might actually be a better matchup with Tall. So if I was trying to get exposure to different top laners on this slate, I may just want to avoid Griffin altogether because of the uncertainty that we're going to have. You're not going to have any news before lock. If there is a lineup that you absolutely love that includes a Griffin top laner, I would just suck it up and play two of them. Meaning like I would create a duplicate lineup and switch out a top laner just to make sure that if that combination hits and you really like that combination, that you have both top laners there. Worst case scenario, you're wasting like $5 or $10. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. That's a pretty good practice in general. The most interesting matchup in this game is going to be in the jungle. So we have Tarzan and we have Cacao. Cacao, I was telling DFS Bachelor about this. He is a very popular player. He's been playing since he was 16, and people just love this guy. He wears or used to wear like leopard print. Actually, am I thinking of the wrong guy? Was that Cacao or was that Imp? I think it was Cacao. So Cacao would like wear really cool glasses and like just have a lot of swag, and everybody kind of just loved him. But then he kind of stopped playing in the LCK for a few splits. He went to China, then he came back and wasn't really playing, wasn't really pushing himself. He made a ton of money in China, if I remember correctly. So I know that he reminds me very much of Peanut, or Peanut reminds me of Cacao, because they're both carry champions with huge personalities. Players and fans seem to love him in general. And I think it would be amazing if he could get back into the LCK next split. It would just be a lot of fun to watch him during the regular season. And if he performs well tonight, maybe he gets picked up by another team, regardless of how his team ends up doing. Like, even if they lose, maybe someone thinks it's worth it to bring Cacao back in. And like I said, he started playing when he was 16. That was 8 years ago, so he's only 24. He's younger than a lot of professionals that we see in, like, North America. Yeah, Cacao is really cool. So in terms of champion pool, let's just try to find champion pool real quick. So, jungle. All right. Olaf, Elise, Trundle, Gragas, Jarvan. So we aren't seeing as many carry champions as he used to play. He used to be like a Nidalee god. So that was always a champion that you had to watch out for when he was playing. So I know that he definitely has the mechanical ability to do that. It just looks like his team doesn't really focus on that right now. And then if we look at Tarzan, we have Jarvan, Rek'Sai, Set. So just a lot of the generic champions. We see a Nocturne game. That's pretty interesting. I don't think it's going to be a great idea to ban out a lot of junglers. I think you'll probably want to make sure that you can get onto the AD carries because both AD carries in this matchup seem to be pretty important. So let's keep it moving. So next, Griffin is going to play Yukal, I believe. And then SRB is going to play Dan Chung. I think that Yukal probably has the advantage in this matchup. Let's get the champion pools in front of us real quick. Because the champion pools do kind of tell you a decent amount about the type of player they are. Let's see. 35 games versus 47 games. Let's see. All right. So we've got Yukal and Dan Chung. There may be some other games by other players in this, but we'll get a basic idea. So Kiana, I'm not a huge Kiana fan. I think that the assassin thing in professional play is a little cheesy. It's not the best. Not the best kind of strategy to pull out. Then we have Dan Chung with a lot of Syndra, Ryze, Azir, Zoe, Galio. I love to see Galio, love to see Pantheon, and I know that these were in their more recent matchups as well. So let's go back to match history. This is Gamepedia, by the way, lol.gamepedia. It's a pretty good site to go and collect this kind of information. So like I was saying, you have Galio, Pantheon, Galio, Galio, Pantheon, Pantheon, and then a lot of Azir games, a lot of Zoe games, Syndra games. I love the champion pool from Dan Chung, so there's not going to be an advantage in terms of champion pool. It's just going to come down to execution. Then we have Yukal. He's played a lot of Zoe, Corki, pulled out a set game, Azir. So he has a pretty versatile champion pool as well, also playing some Rumble. So this means that SRB probably plays the play style that I prefer, which is very interesting, specifically in this meta. And then we see some weird stuff like Ashe support. Everything else is pretty normal, but Ashe support is quite unique. So it looks like they're also putting a lot of effort into their drafts and trying to think of unique ways to beat the enemy team, which is another thing that I like to see. Especially if they're going to play things like Pantheon and Galio in the mid lane, then you have that additional side wave pressure. I'm assuming they're focusing a lot on the bot lane. So that does make me want makes me want to gain access to the 80 carries on both sides. Pretty close matchups. I think that going into this, just assuming that the favorites are going to be significantly better because they're professionals and the other ones aren't professionals, I think that would be a mistake tonight because of the amount of veterans that are playing on the promotion teams. But yeah, so in the mid lane, I'm not really seeing a huge advantage one way or the other in terms of the champions that they play. But in terms of the meta, I think that I may actually prefer SRB for the mid lane specifically. And then we have Viper versus Sangyun. I think Viper is probably the best player in this matchup. I think that he is one of the better AD carries in the LCK from last year. He had a great split well, he had a great year last year, but then all of the Griffin drama kind of sabotaged this year, or at least this split. So I hope that Viper is able to get a good showing and kind of remind everybody why he's regarded so highly in Korea. So Viper versus Sang-yoon, because they both play through the bot lane and have a lot of attention on the bot lane, I don't think there's a huge advantage that the AD carry could create on their own. They're both obviously mechanically skilled players, so it's going to come down to whose teammates can put them in better positions to win the game. So, like support, jungle, mid lane, those are going to be very significant. Then in the bot lane, Nova sounds familiar. I think this guy has played for a long time, but I don't remember any of the teams he played on specifically. Then we have Griffin's support, Wadid and Irove. So Irove has been their support throughout the split, and they just picked up Wadid. I don't think that they would play Wadid today. So if I'm getting exposure to Griffin, I'm going to focus on UCal, Tarzan, and Viper, because they should not be subbed out today. So I would probably rank it Viper number 1, UCal number 2, Tarzan number 3, and then the team slot number 4. I think I prefer the team slot over the support and top spots because of the uncertainty around who is going to play. Just something to keep in mind. Then if I'm playing SRB, I think Tal could definitely carry this series if he gets good matchups against Untara or Sword. If he's pulling out things like Silas, he has a higher kill upside because it's more selfish. Kakao, I haven't watched him play this year, but I'm hopeful. Hopefully he has like some good carry performances, or at least picks those even kinds of champions. I'm sure he could play Kindred and figure it out. In terms of fantasy scoring, I'm not sure which game is going to be higher scoring. I think that DFS Bachelor was telling me that that Sandbox gave up the most points to opponent 80 carries in the entire season for LCK, but I think a lot of that has to do with how much they lost. And then for Griffin, I know that I've watched some of their games recently, and they had some pretty high kill scoring performances. So I am pretty interested in that side of things. If I'm picking either of these underdogs, I'm just doing the basic stacking. Like I'm probably going to focus on the other team and then fit in pieces as I go along. So that's it for LCK. Let's go to EU Masters. For EU Masters, I'm probably going to stream later today or tomorrow and go through all of the matchups that I missed. Because like I didn't put out any of the research that I've done, so I might just do some of that research tonight. So game 1, Diffuse Kids versus Vodafone Giants, -715 to +420. Let's see what we have here. Alois, Hades, Chapapi, and Goose. So they were one of the teams that played in that really long game. Oh wow, it looks like Huni is not a member of Team Dignitas anymore. I wonder where he goes. That's pretty interesting. Okay, so if we're looking at this lane by lane, D'Antonio versus Alois, I don't know enough about those two players to make a judgment call. It's just that Vodafone Giants has been the more successful team, I believe, in this tournament. Yeah, they're 3-0 right now. And this is the second phase of the round robin. So they have already played each other, correct? Yeah, Vodafone Giants. So they only scored 20 points in their matchup against that. I think that'll probably be a little overemphasized throughout the community that they've already played and they only scored 20 points. I mean, you could play literally the same champions against the same team and have vastly different outcomes depending on how the early game goes. So I wouldn't put too much effort on that. I think on 2-game slates, it's more important to get a bunch of different combinations of players than anything else. And also game stacking is in play on both sites, or in both games, because of the fact that it's a 2-game slate. So D'Antonio, Llama Bear, Pretty, and Chapapi. I just think that if you're gonna play either team, you're going to get exposure the normal ways. You're gonna want to find ways to 3-4 and 4-3 stack these teams together. There's not a huge edge, I think, in going specifically into certain matchups in these games. Because like I could come up with a bunch of different storylines that would say, oh well, if DK wins this way, it would make this player the best. But we have such a small sample size for these teams. If anything, I would say the biggest edge in this matchup is playing Vodafone Giants, with the assumption that people are going to see their most recent performance against DK and not believe that they can score like in the high 40s. But the line shows it that the line shows us that they're huge favorites. The next matchup, LDLC is from France, Ego Rogue is from Poland, I believe. This is an interesting matchup. I didn't expect LDLC to score as many points as they have in their most recent victories. So they just played, and again, 30 points. So I think just by looking at that, I would assume people are going to prefer LDLC stacking them with DK. I think that that's a pretty safe bet because LDLC in their matchup against RGO scored a lot of points, and DK in their most recent game put up a lot of points. So anybody who just goes and checks the box scores real quick are going to just say like, oh, well, they're 0-3, but if they win this game, they're going to score a ton of points because just like look at what their 80 carry did in their last matchup. So I could convince myself pretty easily that Diffuse Kids is going to go over-owned. That is interesting. So if I think that LDLC and DK are going to be the more highly owned side, I would probably want to go VGIA and RGO. They're definitely both live dogs in a one game environment. So I would say don't be afraid to pick underdogs ever. That's a great way to make money long term, is to be contrarian. So let's see. Yeah, so I mean that's really it. I mean, if I'm being honest, like when you watch my breakdowns for 2-game slates, you probably see I'm a little bit less interested in them because I'm not going to play. I probably won't play anything on these 2 slates. I hate 2-game slates. I think they're really stupid and uninteresting, and it's just like, here's 150 random combinations of these players. Like, let's see if I can just get lucky. Like, that's not interesting to me. If you like that kind of thing, great. Have fun. Put your 150 lineups into your optimizer and have it spit something out at you. But at that point, it's not a skill test. It's just like, let's try to get lucky and shop with 200 people. Painful. So what else is there in this matchup? I guess that's really it. Take a look at the betting lines. We have -150 and -714. So I could also see people doing something like this. So let's just go with who scored more points in their, oh my god, in their most recent matchup. So I could see like a jungle captain. Let's see, VGIA. All right, so that doesn't fit. So you'd probably have to go to a 3-4 or top or support. So if you think that VGIA and LDLC will both win, the best thing to do is to jam them into your lineup in random combinations. And if that means playing a support as your captain, then play the support of the captain. It's not a problem at all. Huge assist upside, highly correlated with 80 carries. It's all good. So basically, that's all I got for you on this one. Like I said, I do plan on doing a more in-depth breakdown on EU Masters at some point. It's just not sure how many people are really playing EU Masters. I think within another week or so, there will be more interest in the EU Masters because it's going to be like the only thing on. But until we get to that point, I'm not killing myself for EU Masters. So basically, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, like the video, give me a comment, let me know who you're playing tonight, subscribe, share. Let's try to get the community a little larger. We're at like 400 something subscribers right now, almost 500 followers on Twitter. Thanks a lot for the support. It's really cool growing the channel this fast and everything. But there are still bigger milestones that we want to get to so that next split we can really hit the ground running with a lot of great content. Also, let me know if you have any other ideas for videos. Like I did like a Trump explains why he's the best League of Legends player in the world video last night. That was a joke. And it was pretty fun to make. So I'm down to do that kind of stuff as well. I've got another idea for a video that I'll probably post today or tomorrow. Not really going to get into it, but I think it'll be funny to make, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. But until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.
No, you don't need the.
I'm doing this my way.
He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend.
Talking on it though, then
He a
you can't work it
legend.
up later.
Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items.
Pike on money, pike on money, pike on money. We making pike on money. Payday, about to throw a rack on China. Need some DFS advice, where can I find some? League of Items got the sheet with all the lineups and all the stacks that you need to get to diamond. League of